Hey, do you know what your best performing buttons are in your emails? This is going to be a really interesting episode. What are your best performing buttons? When you send an email to your customers, which buttons are they clicking on? I'm going to tell you what ones my customers click on and what I think that tells us about e-commerce and product businesses in general and things that you could learn and take on board to implement for your own business. On this journal style podcast, I share my day-to-day trials and triumphs in growing two e-commerce businesses that I started in 2020. Join me as I share from my kitchen table in Adelaide, Australia. Let's face it, navigating the small business world feels less daunting and less lonely when we share our experiences with someone else. If you're tired of being all the marketing roles in your business, or you just need more customers, I offer expert traffic support tailored to your business through Facebook and Instagram strategy support. Because our goals and our business growth and success needs us to be the driver of the steam train, not the one stoking the coals. Hey, welcome to Aussie e-commerce Mum. My name is Rachel and today's episode is number 52 and it's called What are your best performing buttons? What are your best performing buttons? I'm going to tell you all about my best performing buttons. But first of all, what buttons am I talking about? And I wanted to ask you, do you know what percentage of your revenue comes from your email marketing efforts? You know, in the last 3 years, since I started my two e-commerce businesses, I can confidently say that there's been two main drivers of revenue over those 3 years. And those things have been Facebook ads and Instagram ads and email marketing. They are the two biggest drivers of my revenue by a massive percentage. And these things, I believe, set my business apart from a hobby business. So if you are in the hobby stage or trying to get to some sort of stage that's past hobby, I would suggest that these two things, Facebook and Instagram ads and email marketing, are the things that push you from a hobby business to an actual business. And these things can be hard to get your head around when you first start out in e-commerce, when you first start a business, a product business, a website, all those sorts of things. But they do accumulate over time. The efforts you put into both Facebook and Instagram ads and email marketing will pay you dividends, I promise, in the long term. And those things do accumulate over time. And I found the most common pattern or sort of like customer journey in my two websites in those 3 years has kind of been from, like a customer seeing me or finding my brand on social media that's paid or organic, either or maybe even search traffic, or they go from social media to search traffic. Do you like see an ad on social media, then go to Google and search my business name? And then the revenue drives from email. I find that a lot of my revenue comes from the email after the fact. A customer will find me on social media, may find me on Google, head to my website, sign up for my newsletter, join my giveaway. And then over time through my email flows and campaigns is where the revenue comes in. And revenue from email is the best type. It's your own asset. Email is an asset to your business. Your list is an asset. It's worth something for your business. It's your own channel. You control email and you control the messaging. So what buttons are your best performing? In other words, what buttons or URL links from your email do you have that has been your best performing, as in the most popular with your customers? What buttons are your customers clicking on the most often in your emails? This is super interesting to look at best performing emails, not based on an open rate or an engagement rate like the usual metrics you would see if you log into Klaviyo on your dashboard, or even revenue. But today, we're looking at the buttons in your email and those URL links. What are the ones your customers like to click on? What are the best performing ones in your emails? And I think this gives us heaps of clues, particularly about the type of interests that our customers have. In other words, what buttons or URL links that you've got in the form of a button in your email when you send them to your customers or your subscribers or your followers or your different lists of engaged segments in Klaviyo. What buttons are your customers most interested in? What piques their curiosity? What makes them interested or excited that they click on those buttons? Or what sort of FOMO maybe are you generating that gets customers to click on these buttons? You know, I looked at my whole revenue for 2023 so far, just to give you a bit of a push if you're not convinced yet at the benefit of email marketing. to see what percentage of my total revenue so far for this year has been through email. And these stats are staggering. And like I said, it grows over time, and I'm going to show you how that's true with these couple of different stats. So if you go back and listen to episode 37, I actually talk a lot about my revenue, the high percentage I got of revenue through email. And actually a lot of my episodes have email as either the main topic, or I talk about email a lot in the episodes. A little bit like I talk about Facebook and Instagram ads a lot in my episodes. So when I look back and looked at all my revenue so far for 2023, guess what? 54% of my total revenue has been through email from one of my businesses. 54%. And like I said to you before, it's cumulative. It grows. It's like a little ball of moss rolling down a hill that becomes a giant monster-sized ball of moss rolling down a hill over time. Is that the 54% I have had from my total revenue this year from email is an increase of 300% on 2022. Just take that in for a minute. You know, like if you are a bit on the fence about email marketing, if you don't do a lot of it, you're not sure how to do it, you have no structure to it, I'd really encourage you to go back and listen to my other episodes about email and try and take on board and do some actionable things in your business to set yourself up for this cumulative effect over time. So the 54% of my total revenue this year that's been through email is an increase of 300% on last year, which is crazy. It shows that my list has got a quality list. You know, like the people on my email list are quality leads, and I have a lot of repeat purchases also included in that list. My other website, the total percentage of revenue from email this year so far has been 34%. So almost right on 1/3 is just through email. And it's an increase on last year of, wait for this, 600%. So my other website, where my total revenue this year, 34% has been made up just from emails, and it's increased by 600% based on 2022 stats. So those figures are not insignificant by any means, and it's the reason why Facebook and Instagram ads and email make up the two biggest drivers of revenue for my two businesses, and they have now for 3 years. So now let's look at the buttons. So if you're looking at email, then what buttons do your customers love? What buttons do your subscribers, the people in your list through Klaviyo or whatever email service provider you use, what buttons are exciting them? What buttons interest them? What buttons pique their curiosity? What buttons have some FOMO about them? What buttons do they click on? So this is going to be a bit of fun. I'm going to encourage you after this episode to go find this report for yourself. I'll tell you where you can find it. If you go to the analytics section of Klaviyo and go to custom reports and reports library, the reports library button is at the top right hand side. So you want to go to analytics, custom reports, reports library. You'll find a report there called email clicks by URL. So email clicks by URL is the report I have pulled from my two businesses. In other words, what clicked buttons, I've got the most common URL from your emails that you have sent. And then you can pick a time frame to pull this report. I just chose July 2023. So I was just curious to see in the last month what emails were the most clicked by my customers through Klaviyo. So I'm going to share with you my results, and then I encourage you to go check out this for yourself, because it's going to give you a really interesting insight into what interests your customers. I think it's probably going to solidify or validate for you as well the efforts you're probably putting into different types of content. Let me share with you how I believe that's the case. So when I pulled this report for July 2023, one of my websites, the top 5 performing buttons, my most popular buttons in my emails were, I had a button to a Facebook Live replay. That was my top. The next 2 were blogs. So the next 2 top performing were blog posts. The 4th best performing was a button to a product. And the 5th best performing was also a button to a product. So the top one was actually a button to social media, to a replay of a Facebook Live. The next 2 were blog posts. The next 2 were products. On my second website, my top best performing button was to a product. My second best performing and my third were blogs. My fourth best was another product, and my fifth was the homepage. So for my second website, I had the top one was to a product. The next two were to blog posts. The next one, number 4, best performing was a product, and the fifth best performing was just landing to my homepage. So this tells me a couple of things, and the first thing that jumps out to me is that blogging is not dead. This was interesting to me. I found that the blogs I have been writing and put effort into, that you feel like sometimes it's worthwhile, sometimes it's not. It's hard to really see the ROI on blogging, I guess, particularly if you're in e-commerce like we are. If you're not in affiliate marketing or there's other terms for it. I'm not sure of all the terms. Blogging is the building part of your website, the main driver for your revenue with ad revenue and different affiliate links and stuff and all that sort of thing. If you're selling actual products, then blogging can seem either like, something you've never considered before, or if you do blog on the rare occasion, it's hard to see how that's even worth your time. And maybe it's not. Like, you need to sort of decide that for yourself and work that out for yourself. But I do blog regularly. Regularly as in I definitely blog once a fortnight. But I try and blog once a week, but it doesn't always happen once a week. But I do publish something every couple of weeks. And it's hard to see the direct result of that. I guess I often feel like the direct results come through my Google search results. But again, Google search results can be very closely linked with your social media efforts, especially if you advertise on social media, because people will sometimes see you on social media and then go find your brand through Google. And you might have done that too as a customer or a consumer before too. It's important to keep that in mind, how you act as a consumer when you're out shopping and looking and discovering new brands. Is you might see an ad on social media but not click on the ad. But then you might head to Google later or at the same time or when you think about it and search for the brand. So those two things are a little linked. But having said that, Google is why I often blog, is for SEO and to build that content up over time, to keep my website current and relevant and fresh and new, with new content and new things happening. So that was super interesting for me. This is totally validated for me why blogging is important and why I should continue to spend time doing it and putting my effort into it. It validates to me that the content that you create with your brand and your business is so important and super, super valuable when the content you create, your customers and your audience loves it. So a little bit again about blogging or even social media posts. If you create content that your customers enjoy and love and engage with and find interesting, it's really valuable. It's worth your time and effort to do that thing. It's worth the time you put into it and creating it and writing it and drafting it and editing it. Whether it's social media or blogging, if the content's valuable to your audience, it's valuable to your business. I think that's the bottom line I would hope for you to take away from that. And here's the other thing I found interesting. Here's the mix of the different emails from both websites is very similar. Is 2 of them were products out of the top 5, which is great because we are in e-commerce after all, so we want customers to be heading to our products. 2 of them were blogs or articles, but included in those is always links to products. So if you do blog, if you're thinking about blogging, always include some links back to your products, to your website, included in those blogs. Always put something, I always include 2 or 3 inside any blog post that points back to a product. Depending on what the blog is about, it might be about a specific product because I've talked about it in the blog post, but it could also be a very generic link about here's my newest, releases if you want to check out what's brand new, or if you want to see my best performing, my most popular, my top seller. Some can also be some generic links, but always include some links inside your blogs back to your products so that customers who read your blog can head back to shop easily if they want to. And no one is surprised, by the way, about that. If you read blogs online or articles online, no one is surprised at the links to products. And nowadays, if you often read articles or recipes online, you have to dig to find the recipe. It's very annoying because the websites are cluttered with like pop-ups and banners and links and ads everywhere to other things other than what it is you're trying to read. So I'm not talking about completely cluttering up a blog post, of course, but no one is surprised to see a couple of links to your products inside a blog post that you have written on your website. So don't be too worried about that if you're a bit concerned about, advertising to your customers inside a blog post. The other thing is pushing to other content is also really valuable. So my top performing from one of my websites was a link to social media to a replay of a video I did. And that was my top performing. So Even pushing to other content that is not a blog or not your products, but something else can also be really valuable and interesting for your customer. You could say this could even be pushing to content that might be a feature. Perhaps you showed up at a craft market in person when you usually just sell online. You'll probably find that that becomes a high performing button in your emails because you're pushing to a bit of a feature content for your customers, something you wouldn't normally talk to them about or you wouldn't normally link to. You're not often, we often link to products. That's what we do with e-commerce, but maybe linking to something really unique or different will pique your customers' interest and be really interesting for them to click on and to find out more about it. Just content in this sort of content really invites a deeper connection with your customers. I think that's why that was my top performing on one of my websites. One of my emails through one of my websites was a push to a replay of a Facebook video. This advice, pretty seriously, sounds like a funny thing to say, but these are two different businesses. I have two websites with two businesses and two different audiences. And the trends are similar between both. So it's not insignificant data here for you. I would encourage you really to consider this seriously for your own business. If you're not sure what buttons are the most popular, or if you're a bit on the fence and don't do email marketing very often, is that if you're going to do some email marketing and you're not sure where to start, then take this to heart. These two websites with two different audiences, two different product ranges, two different types of businesses, both have very similar trends in the top performing buttons. Both websites, both email accounts that I send emails through, had two blogs feature in their top 5 button clicks. Both websites had two products featured in their top 5 button clicks. So take that away from this episode if you're not sure where to start, is do some blogging and put that in an email to your customers. Write some emails featuring some products and email that to your customers. So what are you going to do now after you've listened to this episode? I encourage you to head to Klaviyo and pull this report for yourself. Run the report. Go schedule some time in your diary to write some emails this week and maybe write some blogs as well. And also write some emails around some of your products. If you haven't sent an email to your customers in a while featuring a product, then go and do that. It's a bit of a balance. It was interesting that the top 5 best performing buttons from both my businesses were not all products, and they weren't all blogs, and they weren't all links to external social media sites or to other websites with other people's content. It was a mixture of all those things. So customers look for variety. They want to see your brand as a whole brand and get to know you a little bit better as the CEO, as the owner of your business. So did you find this episode helpful? I hope you did. Well, I'd encourage you to share it with a friend. Maybe you could benefit from this topic that I shared with you today. And I hope my diary style podcast has been an encouragement for you as we spent this time together. I enjoy sharing some real life challenges, and I love sharing the wins of growing a product business. And we totally got to share some wins today. I hope you found it encouraging. Thank you so much for listening. Head to my website. In fact, you can reach out for a free discovery call through my website. And maybe who does that suit and who doesn't it suit? Perhaps if you're considering Facebook and Instagram advertising, like a done-for-you solution on Facebook ads, or just strategy support that you could implement DIY for your own business, or you maybe just need more customers to find your website and products, I can totally help you. So head to AussieEcommerceMum.com.au and I'll see you next time. Keep learning.